The strange human need to find someone to blame. Imagine that something goes terribly wrong. A bridge collapses, a relationship ends, a company loses millions, a child gets sick, a political movement fails, a plane crashes, a friend suddenly stops answering your messages. There is a moment, often very brief, when the mind encounters something it hates more than almost anything else. I don't know why this happened. That sentence creates a kind of psychological emptiness. And human beings are remarkably bad at leaving that emptiness empty. We want an explanation, but sometimes an explanation isn't enough. We want a person, someone who made the mistake, someone who should have noticed, someone who could have prevented it, someone whose decision, weakness, greed, stupidity, carelessness, betrayal, or evil caused the disaster, someone to point at, someone to blame. This is one of the strangest habits of the human mind, because blame does something that simple explanation cannot. It gives chaos a face. It turns an unbearable question into a story. Something happened. Someone did it. And once we have someone to blame, the world suddenly feels a little more understandable, even if the person is not actually responsible. That is where things become interesting, because the human need to assign blame is not simply about anger. It reaches much deeper. It touches our ideas about fairness, control, morality, identity, fear, uncertainty, and even our sense that the universe is supposed to make sense. Sometimes blame protects us. Sometimes it helps societies function. Sometimes it exposes genuine wrongdoing. And sometimes, quietly and almost invisibly, it becomes a psychological trick we play on ourselves because the truth is harder to tolerate. The truth may be that nobody caused it, or that many causes came together, or that the outcome was partly predictable but not preventable, or that we ourselves played a role, or that the world is simply capable of producing terrible outcomes without first asking whether they are deserved. And that possibility is deeply uncomfortable. So we look for someone. The comfort of a villain. Suppose you are walking down the street and suddenly a window above you shatters. You look up. A simple explanation would be the glass was old, the temperature changed, the frame was damaged, the pressure became too much, the window failed. But your brain may immediately ask something else. Who broke it? That question is psychologically powerful. If somebody broke the window, then the event has a clear structure. There is an action, there is an actor, there is a reason, there is responsibility, there is a possible response. You can confront the person, you can punish them, you can demand compensation, you can prevent them from doing it again. The world has returned to a recognizable shape. Now imagine a different explanation. The window had been slowly weakening for 20 years. Tiny cracks accumulated. Nobody noticed. A subtle change in temperature created enough stress for the glass to fail at exactly that moment. There is no villain. There is no satisfying moment when you can say, it was your fault. There is only a chain of ordinary events. That explanation might be more accurate, but emotionally it can be much less satisfying. This is one reason blame is so powerful. Blame creates boundaries. It separates the innocent from the guilty, the victim from the offender, us from them. Before blame, there may be uncertainty. After blame, there is a story. And stories are one of the primary ways human beings understand reality. We don't experience our lives as endless streams of disconnected events. We automatically organize events into narratives. Someone did something. Something happened because of something else. There was a beginning, there was a cause, there was an outcome. This ability is enormously useful. It helps us learn. If touching a hot stove hurts, we remember the connection. If trusting a particular person repeatedly leads to betrayal, we learn to be more cautious. If a certain machine fails after being operated in a certain way, engineers investigate the connection. Cause and effect are the foundation of learning, but the same mental machinery can become dangerous when reality is more complicated than the story we want. Because our minds do not merely search for causes, they often search for agents, and agents can be blamed. Why someone did this feels better than things happened. There is a profound psychological difference between these two statements. This happened because several factors interacted in an unpredictable way, and this happened because that person made a terrible decision. The first explanation may be closer to reality. The second is easier to understand. It has a beginning, middle, and end. It also gives us something to do with our emotions. Anger needs somewhere to go. Fear needs something to fear. Grief sometimes needs a target. When something terrible happens, people often experience a confusing mixture of emotions. There may be sadness, fear, helplessness, humiliation, uncertainty, and rage. Blame transforms those emotions into something more focused. Instead of, why is the world like this? We can ask, how could they do this? That is a much easier question. Notice the difference. The first question points toward the universe, the second points toward a human being, and human beings are much easier to understand than the universe. This may be one reason people sometimes cling to explanations that are too simple. A complicated explanation leaves uncertainty. A simple explanation leaves a villain, and villains are psychologically useful. They tell us where to look, they tell us who to hate, they tell us who should pay, they tell us that the disaster was not random. Most importantly, they can restore the feeling that somebody was in control, even if that control existed only in our imagination. The terrifying alternative: nobody was in control. One of the deepest reasons we search for blame may be our discomfort with helplessness. Imagine you are driving carefully, you follow the speed limit, your car is maintained, you are paying attention, and suddenly another driver runs a red light. There is an accident. In this case, blame may be appropriate. Another person made a dangerous choice. But now imagine something different. You are driving carefully. The road is wet. A tire has an invisible manufacturing defect. It fails at exactly the wrong moment. You lose control. Nobody intended it. Nobody consciously decided to cause the crash. No villain exists. That version may actually be harder to emotionally process. Why? Because if a person caused the accident, then the world remains predictable in an important way. Bad decisions produce consequences. People can be held accountable. But if terrible things can emerge from ordinary circumstances without anyone choosing them, then the universe becomes less reassuring. The lesson becomes, you can do everything right and still lose. Human beings know this intellectually, but we often resist it emotionally. We like to believe that the world contains a relationship between behavior and outcome. Good behavior should lead to good outcomes. Bad behavior should lead to bad outcomes. Work hard and succeed. Be kind and be treated kindly. Drive carefully and remain safe. Make good choices and avoid disaster. There is some truth in these patterns, but they are not laws of the universe. The world contains randomness, accidents, biological vulnerabilities, natural disasters, chance encounters, unintended consequences, and complex systems whose outcomes nobody can completely predict. And when those things produce suffering, we often experience an uncomfortable question. If nobody is responsible, then what does this suffering mean? Sometimes the mind would rather invent a culprit than accept that there may be no satisfying meaning. The just world problem. Psychologists have studied a related tendency sometimes called the just world belief. In simple terms, it is the tendency to believe that people generally get what they deserve. Good people should be rewarded. Bad people should be punished. If someone suffers, there must be a reason. This belief can make the world feel orderly, and order feels safe. If suffering is always connected to wrongdoing, then perhaps we can avoid suffering by behaving correctly. But reality does not reliably work that way. A kind person can develop cancer. A dishonest person can become wealthy. A careful driver can die in an accident. A cruel person can live a long life surrounded by people who admire them. A hardworking person can lose everything during an economic crisis. A talented person can fail because of timing. A mediocre person can succeed because somebody happened to notice them at the right moment. These situations are uncomfortable because they weaken our sense of control. So when someone suffers, observers may unconsciously search for something the victim did wrong. They should have known better. They trusted the wrong person. They shouldn't have gone there. They made bad choices. Sometimes those statements are reasonable. Sometimes they are not. The important point is psychological. If we can convince ourselves that the victim caused their own suffering, then we can preserve a comforting belief. That won't happen to me because I would make better choices. This is one of the darker functions of blame. Blaming the victim can protect the observer from fear. If a person was attacked because they were careless, then perhaps careful people are safe. If someone lost everything because they were irresponsible, perhaps responsible people are protected. If someone became sick because they lived badly, perhaps healthy people have nothing to worry about. The world becomes morally organized again. The price is compassion, and sometimes truth. Blame is not always wrong. It is important not to turn this into an argument that blame is always irrational. That would be another oversimplification. Sometimes people really are responsible. If someone deliberately harms another person, responsibility matters. If a company knowingly sells a dangerous product, accountability matters. If a leader knowingly lies about a serious danger, blame may be justified. If an engineer ignores a known safety problem and people die as a result, investigating responsibility is not merely emotional, it is necessary. Without accountability, societies become dangerous. Imagine a world in which nobody could ever say, "You caused this." There would be no meaningful concept of negligence, no meaningful criminal responsibility, no reason to investigate preventable disasters, no protection against repeated abuse. Blame can therefore be useful because it allows societies to distinguish between accidents, mistakes, negligence, and deliberate harm. The real problem is not blame itself. The problem is our tendency to use blame before understanding. We often begin with, "Whose fault is this?" when a better first question might be, "What actually happened?" Those questions sound similar. They are not. The first seeks a target, the second seeks reality. The difference between cause and responsibility. This distinction is surprisingly difficult. Imagine a house burns down. A fire investigator discovers that the fire began because a candle was left burning. The candle is a cause, but the candle is not responsible. A person left it burning. Perhaps they forgot. Perhaps they were distracted. Perhaps the candle holder was defective. Perhaps someone deliberately started the fire. Now the investigation becomes more complicated. There may be several causes. There may also be different levels of responsibility. This distinction matters because people often collapse cause and blame into the same thing. But something can contribute to an outcome without being morally blameworthy. A storm can cause a flood. A virus can cause illness. A childhood experience can influence someone's behavior. A bad economic policy can contribute to poverty. A misunderstanding can destroy a relationship. None of these automatically answers the moral question of who should be blamed. Human events are often networks of causes rather than single chains. One person's decision interacts with another person's decision. Those decisions interact with institutions. Institutions interact with technology. Technology interacts with the environment. Small accidents interact with timing, and suddenly something enormous happens. We look at the final result and instinctively want to trace a straight line backward to one person, but reality may look more like a tangled web. The web is harder to explain, so we simplify it. We choose a node, we point. There, that's the reason. Why scapegoats appear. This becomes especially powerful in groups. When an entire community experiences fear, economic hardship, disease, political instability, or social change, people often look for someone who represents the problem. A minority group, a foreign population, a political opponent, a religious community, immigrants, the wealthy, the poor, scientists, government officials, corporations, journalists, young people, old people, anyone who can be turned into a simple explanation. History contains many examples of societies blaming groups for problems that had far more complicated causes. The reason this works is not mysterious. Groups provide ready-made stories. If thousands of people are frightened, telling them that the problem is caused by one identifiable enemy is emotionally powerful. It turns uncertainty into conflict. It gives anger direction, and it creates unity. There is an important psychological trick hidden inside this. Nothing unites us faster than a threatening them. When a group shares an enemy, internal differences can temporarily become less important. People who disagree about almost everything may suddenly agree on one thing. They are the problem. That feeling can be intoxicating. It creates belonging. It creates purpose. It creates a simple moral map. We are the good side. They are the bad side. And the more frightened people become, the more attractive that simplicity can be. The scapegoat does more than absorb anger. A scapegoat doesn't merely receive blame. A scapegoat can also absorb uncertainty. Suppose a society faces a complicated economic crisis. The real causes might involve interest rates, debt, policy decisions, technological change, global trade, consumer behavior, demographics, institutional failures, and unexpected events. That explanation is difficult. Now imagine someone says, "The problem is those people." Suddenly, everyone understands, or at least they feel as though they understand. The explanation may be completely inadequate, but psychological simplicity has replaced intellectual accuracy. This pattern can be dangerous because once a group becomes the explanation for everything, evidence becomes less important. Every new problem confirms the story. If the economy gets worse, they caused it. If it improves, they are secretly manipulating it. If something unexpected happens, that becomes evidence too. The theory becomes almost impossible to disprove. This is one reason conspiracy thinking can become so powerful. A conspiracy theory often begins with a real mystery, contradiction, or genuine wrongdoing. But the human mind dislikes unanswered questions, so a gap in knowledge becomes an opportunity. "We don't know what happened" becomes "someone must know," which can become "someone caused it," and eventually "we know who." The final step is emotionally satisfying because uncertainty has been replaced with certainty, but emotional satisfaction is not evidence. The mind hates randomness. Consider a simple experiment. Flip a coin. Heads. Flip again. Tails. Again. Heads. Again. Tails. Your brain sees a pattern, even though the coin has no memory. Humans are extraordinary pattern-finding machines. This ability helped our ancestors survive. If movement in the grass often meant a predator, noticing movement quickly was valuable. If dark clouds usually preceded storms, recognizing the pattern was useful. If certain plants repeatedly caused illness, remembering the connection could save a life. The problem is that a brain designed to detect meaningful patterns can also detect patterns that aren't really there. We see faces in clouds. We notice coincidences. We remember unlikely events. We connect to unrelated events. We infer intentions. And when something terrible happens, we often search for a pattern behind it. If there is no obvious pattern, we may invent one. This is not necessarily stupidity. It is the side effect of a very powerful survival system. The brain would rather sometimes see a pattern that isn't there than miss a real danger. In evolutionary terms, that can make sense. If you hear a sound in the forest and assume it might be a predator when it is actually the wind, you lose a little sleep. If you assume it is the wind when it is actually a predator, you may not get another chance. So the mind becomes biased toward meaningful possibilities. And one of the strongest meaningful possibilities is someone did this on purpose. Intentions change everything. Humans are particularly sensitive to intention. Imagine someone bumps into you on the street. If they were distracted and immediately apologize, you probably forgive them. If they deliberately shove you, your emotional response is completely different. The physical event may be nearly identical. Your interpretation of intention changes everything. This is why blame is closely connected to our ability to imagine other people's minds. We constantly ask, what were they thinking? Why did they do that? Did they mean it? Did they know? Did they care? Were they trying to hurt me? These questions are useful, but they can also become traps. We often infer intentions from outcomes. Someone says something hurtful. We assume they wanted to hurt us. Someone doesn't respond to a message. We assume they are ignoring us. Someone makes a mistake. We assume they didn't care. Someone succeeds. We assume they were trying to beat us. But outcomes do not always reveal intentions. People are distracted, confused, afraid, insecure, overwhelmed, ignorant, impulsive. Sometimes they simply make mistakes. The human mind, however, prefers a coherent story. And intentional actions fit stories beautifully. Why we blame others differently than ourselves. There is another strange feature of blame. We often explain our own behavior using circumstances, but we explain other people's behavior using character. If we arrive late, we think, traffic was terrible, my alarm failed, something unexpected happened. If someone else arrives late, we may think they're irresponsible, they don't respect my time, they always do this. The same event gets two different explanations depending on who performed it. Psychologists sometimes describe this as a tendency to focus on the situation when explaining our own behavior and the person's character when explaining someone else's. You don't need to remember the technical term. The important idea is simple. We know our own circumstances from the inside. We know when we were tired. We know what distracted us. We know what we intended. We know what we were afraid of. Other people's inner worlds are hidden. So when someone else behaves badly, we have less information. The mind fills the gap, and it often fills it with personality. They are selfish, they are careless, they are arrogant, they don't care. Maybe they are, but maybe something else happened. This does not mean we should excuse every harmful action. It means that responsibility and understanding are not enemies. You can say, what you did was wrong, without claiming, therefore you are a terrible human being. That distinction is psychologically important. The pleasure of moral certainty. Blame can also provide something more subtle, the feeling of being morally right. There is a particular emotional pleasure in judging someone who has clearly violated a rule. You are not merely angry, you are righteous. You are standing on the correct side, they are standing on the wrong side. This can become addictive. Moral certainty simplifies difficult situations. If the world is complicated, you have to think. If the world is divided into good people and bad people, you only have to choose a side. And once you have chosen a side, almost everything becomes easier to interpret. Evidence supporting your side feels convincing. Evidence against your side feels suspicious. Mistakes made by your side are understandable. Mistakes made by the other side reveal their true character. This is how blame can become part of identity. You are no longer merely blaming someone, you are defending who you are. That makes changing your mind much harder, because admitting that your target was not entirely responsible may feel like betraying your group. And this is where ordinary human psychology can scale into politics, religion, culture, and even war. The larger the identity, the greater the emotional cost of admitting maybe we were wrong about them. Blame. Blame can protect the ego. There is an even more uncomfortable possibility. Sometimes we blame others because the alternative would require us to blame ourselves. A business fails. The owner blames the economy. A relationship ends. One partner blames the other. A student fails. They blame the teacher. A project collapses. The team blames management. Sometimes these explanations are correct, but sometimes they are defenses. The ego wants to preserve a positive image of itself. I made a mistake is painful. They sabotaged me is easier. I misunderstood the situation is painful. They lied to me is easier. I wasn't prepared is painful. The system was against me is easier. The interesting thing is that blame can protect us from shame, and shame can be much harder to tolerate than anger. Anger says, something wrong happened to me. Shame says, something is wrong with me. The first points outward, the second points inward. So when people feel threatened, they may transform shame into anger and then anger into blame. This does not mean every accusation is secretly self-hatred, but it helps explain why some conflicts become strangely intense. The emotional reaction may be much larger than the original event. The person is not only defending a position, they are defending their identity. The blame machine inside relationships. You can see this pattern in ordinary relationships. Two people have an argument. One says, you never listen. The other says, you never explain anything. The first, because you don't care. The second, I don't care because you treat me like I'm always wrong. Now the original problem has disappeared. They are no longer discussing what happened. They are building competing stories about who is responsible for the relationship's problems. Each person selects evidence, each person remembers previous incidents, each person becomes prosecutor, witness, and judge, and each new accusation creates another accusation. This is how blame becomes circular. You did this because I did that. I did that because you did this. You started it. No, you started it. Eventually, the argument is no longer about an event. It is about identity. Who is the victim? Who is the villain? Who has the moral high ground? At that point, understanding becomes almost impossible, because understanding the other person's perspective can feel like losing the case. The strange difference between explanation and excuse. There is a common fear behind compassion. If I understand why someone did something, doesn't that mean I'm excusing them? Not necessarily. Understanding is not the same as forgiveness. Explanation is not the same as justification. Suppose someone behaves cruelly because they are afraid. Knowing that may explain the behavior. It does not make the behavior acceptable. Suppose someone steals because they are desperate. That context may matter. It does not automatically erase responsibility. Suppose a leader makes a disastrous decision because they were under enormous pressure. That may help us understand the decision. It does not mean the consequences disappear. This distinction is extremely important because blame becomes easier when we believe we have only two choices. Either the person is evil or they are innocent. But reality contains a huge middle ground. Someone can be responsible and still be human. Someone can cause harm without intending it. Someone can have good intentions and produce terrible consequences. Someone can be shaped by circumstances and still make choices. Someone can deserve accountability without becoming a monster. Once we accept that middle ground, blame becomes more precise, and precision is usually healthier than rage. When blame actually helps. Blame has a useful social function when it answers three questions. What happened? Who had meaningful control over it? What should change now? Imagine a hospital discovers that a medication error harmed a patient. One response is, find the incompetent person and punish them. Another is, don't blame anyone. Mistakes happen. Neither is automatically sufficient. A better investigation might ask, was the employee exhausted? Was the label confusing? Was the medication stored next to a similar one? Was the procedure poorly designed? Was there inadequate training? Was the mistake foreseeable? Did someone ignore a known warning? Did management create conditions where this error was likely? Perhaps one person made the final mistake, but perhaps the system quietly created the conditions for that mistake. This is a crucial shift. Instead of asking only, who is guilty, we ask, how did this become possible? That question can prevent future disasters. It transforms blame into learning, and that may be one of the healthiest forms of accountability. The difference between punishment and prevention. Sometimes people want someone punished because punishment feels like justice, and sometimes justice genuinely requires consequences, but punishment and prevention are not identical. If an accident happened because a system was badly designed, punishing one employee may create the illusion that the problem has been solved. It hasn't. The same system remains. The next employee may make the same mistake. This is why serious investigations often become more useful when they look beyond the final human error. Human beings make mistakes. The real question is whether the surrounding system was designed with that reality in mind. A good system does not assume everyone will always be perfectly attentive, perfectly rested, perfectly trained, and perfectly rational. It expects humans to be human. That is a profound lesson. Because blaming individuals can sometimes hide failures in systems, and systems are harder to blame. They have no face, no voice, no obvious villain, but they can still produce enormous consequences. We prefer villains to systems. A person can be hated, a system cannot. You can look at a photograph of someone, you can imagine their motives, you can tell stories about their personality, you can demand their punishment. But what do you do with a collection of incentives, outdated procedures, institutional habits, economic pressures, cultural expectations, and technological limitations? It is much harder to turn those things into a villain. So human beings often personalize problems. A complicated institutional failure becomes one bad manager. A political crisis becomes one politician. A social problem becomes one group. A financial disaster becomes one greedy executive. Sometimes those individuals deserve blame, but focusing exclusively on them can make the larger causes invisible. And when the individual disappears, the problem may remain. The villain gets removed. The machine keeps running. Why blame spreads so quickly during crises? Fear changes how people think. When people feel threatened, they often want simple information quickly. Who is responsible? What caused this? Who is dangerous? What should we do? During a crisis, uncertainty can become unbearable. Rumors thrive in that environment because rumors provide structure. A rumor says, here is what happened, here is why it happened, here is who caused it, here is what they will do next. Suddenly, the unknown becomes a story. This can happen after disasters, terrorist attacks, financial crashes, political shocks, epidemics, and even personal tragedies. The need for an explanation becomes so strong that people may accept explanations before evidence is available. And once an explanation becomes emotionally important, evidence has a harder time competing with it. People don't merely ask, is this true? They may also ask, does this explain what I'm feeling? Those are very different questions. An explanation can feel true because it fits the emotional shape of an event. That does not make it factually true. The conspiracy trap. This is where conspiracy theories become particularly interesting. A conspiracy theory is not automatically false simply because it is a conspiracy theory. Real conspiracies have existed. Groups of people sometimes secretly coordinate to deceive others, hide wrongdoing, manipulate outcomes, or protect themselves. History contains documented examples, so skepticism should work in both directions. We should not believe every conspiracy. But we also should not assume every hidden agreement is impossible. The problem comes when the theory becomes a universal explanation. Suppose something strange happens. Instead of saying, "we don't know," someone says, "they did it." Then evidence against the theory is interpreted as evidence that the conspirators are covering their tracks. Evidence for the theory confirms it. Lack of evidence confirms it. Contradictions confirm how powerful the conspiracy must be. Now the theory has become nearly impossible to falsify. At that point, it can satisfy a psychological need more than an investigative one. It has transformed uncertainty into certainty, and certainty feels wonderful when you are afraid. The most dangerous sentence. It had to be someone. There is a hidden assumption inside blame. If something happened, somebody must have made it happen. But this is not always true. Some events emerge from systems. Some emerge from chance. Some emerge from many small decisions. Some emerge from natural processes. Some emerge because two unrelated events happen at the same time. Some emerge because people react to one another in ways nobody intended. Consider a crowd. One person starts running. Another person sees them and assumes danger. They run too. Someone else sees them. Soon, hundreds of people are running. Who caused the panic? The first person? The second? The rumor? The environment? The absence of information, the fear already present in the crowd? There may be no single answer. The event emerged from interactions. This is true of many human phenomena. Markets, riots, traffic jams, social media trends, financial bubbles, political movements, friendship networks, office cultures, even languages. No single person sits at the center controlling everything. Yet our minds still search for the person, because people are easier to understand than emergence. The human need for a beginning. There may be an even deeper reason we blame. We want stories to have beginnings. If something terrible happened, we want to know where it started. Who opened the door? Who made the first mistake? Who pulled the first lever? Who said the first word? But many real-world events do not have a clean beginning. A crisis may build over decades. A relationship may deteriorate through hundreds of tiny moments. A political conflict may inherit tensions from generations earlier. A financial collapse may depend on decisions made years before. A person's behavior may be shaped by experiences from childhood, culture, biology, opportunity, fear, and chance. Where exactly does responsibility begin? There may be no satisfying line. Human beings prefer lines. Reality often gives us gradients. Hack the paradox of free will. This leads to one of the oldest and strangest philosophical problems. When we blame someone, what exactly are we saying? We usually mean that the person could have chosen differently. But what does that mean? Think about a decision you made yesterday. You chose what to eat. Why? Because you were hungry. But why were you hungry? Because of your body's condition. Why was your body in that condition? Because of what you ate earlier, how you slept, how you exercised, your biology, your environment, and countless other factors. What about your preferences? Where did those come from? Your childhood, your culture, your memories, your experiences, your genetics, your relationships, your habits, your personality. None of this means free will is definitely an illusion. That remains a deep philosophical question. There are strong arguments on different sides, but the thought experiment reveals something uncomfortable. Every human decision emerges from a history. When we blame someone, we often imagine them as an isolated individual who simply chose to do something. But people are not isolated. They are products of circumstances as well as agents within those circumstances. This creates a difficult moral question. How much responsibility should we assign to someone whose behavior was heavily shaped by forces they did not choose? There is no simple answer, and perhaps there shouldn't be. Moral responsibility may be something we have to apply carefully rather than absolutely. If we stopped blaming, would anything improve? Probably not. A world without blame would have serious problems. Victims could be ignored. Abusers could escape consequences. Negligence could become invisible. Institutions could avoid accountability. People could say, hey, nobody is responsible for anything. That would be dangerous. The better alternative is not eliminating blame. It is making blame more intelligent. Instead of asking, who can I hate? Ask, who had control? Instead of, who is the villain? Ask, what choices were made? Instead of, whose fault is this? Ask, what caused this? Instead of, who deserves punishment? Ask, what consequence is fair and what will prevent this from happening again? Instead of, how could they be so stupid? What information did they have at the time? Instead of, why didn't they just do the right thing? Ask, what pressures, incentives, fears, or limitations shaped their decision? These questions do not eliminate accountability. They improve it. The strange piece of saying, I don't know. Perhaps the most difficult skill in all of this is learning to tolerate uncertainty. Sometimes the honest answer is, we don't know. We don't know exactly why someone behaved that way. We don't know why a disaster happened. We don't know whether a decision would have changed the outcome. We don't know which cause mattered most. We don't know whether something was preventable. We don't know what would have happened under different circumstances. The phrase, I don't know, can feel weak, but sometimes it is a sign of intellectual strength. It means we are willing to leave a space in our understanding rather than fill it with a convenient story. That is harder than it sounds, because uncertainty feels like vulnerability. If I don't know who caused the problem, I don't know how to protect myself. If I don't know why someone rejected me, I don't know what to change. If I don't know why a relationship failed, I don't know how to prevent the next one from failing. If I don't know why something terrible happened, I don't know whether I could have stopped it. So we create explanations. Some are true, some are partly true, some are wrong, some are comforting, and some exist mainly because silence is unbearable. The blame we carry for ourselves. There is another side to this story that is easy to miss. The human need to assign blame does not always point outward. Sometimes it turns inward. Something goes wrong and we immediately think, it's my fault. We replay conversations. We imagine different choices. We search for the moment when everything supposedly went wrong. If only I had said this. If only I had noticed that. If only I had left earlier. If only I had trusted my instincts. If only... This can create the illusion that the past was more controllable than it really was. We imagine ourselves standing at a crossroads with perfect information. We know what happened next, so we judge our earlier selves as though they knew it too. But they didn't. This is one of the cruelest forms of hindsight. We remember the outcome and forget the uncertainty that existed before it. At the time, there were multiple possibilities. Afterward, only one happened. The mind then looks backward and says it was obvious. Usually, it wasn't. And sometimes self-blame is simply the internal version of the same psychological process. We would rather believe, I caused this, than I lived through something I could not fully control. Why? Because guilt can strangely feel safer than helplessness. If it was my fault, then maybe I can prevent it next time. If it wasn't my fault, perhaps it means terrible things can happen despite my best efforts. That possibility is much harder to accept. Control may be the real thing we are searching for. This may be the deepest layer of the entire problem. Perhaps, when we search for someone to blame, we are not really searching for a villain. We are searching for control. If someone caused the disaster, then maybe removing that person will prevent the next disaster. If I caused the failure, then maybe changing myself will prevent the next one. If a group caused the problem, then maybe defeating that group will restore safety. If the government caused it, replace the government. If corporations caused it, regulate them. If technology caused it, ban the technology. If human nature caused it, change human nature. Each explanation contains a promise. If we identify the cause, we can regain control. Sometimes that promise is real, sometimes it is not. Reality does not guarantee that every problem has a controllable cause. Some things are preventable, some are reducible, some are manageable, some are unavoidable, and some remain mysterious. The human mind would prefer all 5 categories to be the first one. What happens when blame becomes identity? There is a point where blame stops being about solving a problem. It becomes part of who we are. Some people build entire identities around opposition. They know who they hate, they know what they reject, they know who is responsible for everything wrong. Remove the enemy and something strange happens. The the person loses part of their identity. This is why conflicts can continue long after their original causes become unclear. The enemy has become psychologically useful. It provides meaning, it provides community, it provides a simple explanation for frustration, it provides a story about why life is difficult, and it provides a feeling of moral superiority. The cost is enormous. Once someone becomes the symbol of everything wrong, you stop seeing them as a person. They become an object, a category, a threat, a villain. And once that happens, almost anything becomes easier to justify. This is how ordinary psychological tendencies can become dangerous on a large scale. The first step may be as small as, they made me angry, then they always do this. Then, people like them are all the same, and eventually, they are the problem. The individual has disappeared. Only the category remains. The better question. So what should we do when something goes wrong? Perhaps the answer is not to stop blaming. Perhaps it is to slow down before we blame. There is a sequence that can help. First, what happened? Then, what do we actually know? Then, what are we assuming? Then, what caused the outcome? Then, which causes were under someone's control? Then, what was intentional, what was accidental, and what was simply unpredictable? Then, what responsibility is fair? And finally, what should happen now? Notice what is missing. There is no question asking, who can we hate? That question may feel natural, but it rarely produces the best answer. A good investigation is not a courtroom where everyone must be either innocent or guilty. Reality is usually messier. Someone may have made a mistake. Someone else may have created the conditions for that mistake. Someone else may have failed to notice a warning. A system may have rewarded dangerous behavior. A coincidence may have amplified everything. And a final outcome may still have been impossible to predict. That is not satisfying. But truth does not owe us emotional satisfaction. The world does not always give us a villain. There is something almost childlike in our desire for a clean moral universe. We want good people and bad people. We want causes and consequences. We want the guilty punished. We want the innocent protected. We want disasters to have explanations. We want suffering to have meaning. We want the future to be predictable if we behave correctly. These desires are understandable. They may even be necessary for civilization. But reality repeatedly refuses to cooperate. Good people make terrible decisions. Bad people sometimes do kind things. Accidents destroy lives. Tiny decisions produce enormous consequences. Large disasters can emerge from ordinary behavior. People misunderstand one another. Systems fail. Chance intervenes. And sometimes nobody is fully to blame. That last possibility may be the hardest, because if nobody is to blame, there is nobody to confront, no villain to defeat, no single person to punish, no simple lesson, only the uncomfortable realization that reality is more complicated than our stories about it. The courage to resist the easy story. The next time something goes wrong, notice what your mind does. Someone disappoints you. Someone cuts you off in traffic. A politician makes a decision you hate. A friend says something cruel. A project fails. A stranger behaves badly. A tragedy appears in the news. Watch the first story your mind creates. Who does it point toward? What intention does it assume? What information does it ignore? Does it explain too much with too little? Does it make you feel safer? Does it make you feel morally superior? Does it give you someone to hate? And most importantly, would you believe the same explanation if the roles were reversed? These questions do not mean you should become passive. They do not mean you should tolerate wrongdoing. They do not mean everyone is equally responsible. They mean something simpler. Don't let the emotional need for a culprit decide what you believe before the evidence does. That may be one of the hardest forms of self-control, because blame feels like action. Understanding can feel like hesitation. But sometimes the pause is where the truth lives. The final paradox. Perhaps the strangest thing about our need to blame is that it comes from something admirable. We want the world to make sense. We want actions to matter. We want people to be responsible. We want victims to receive justice. We want danger to have causes that can be understood. We want to believe that if we learn enough, we can prevent the same suffering tomorrow. These are not bad desires. They are part of what makes civilization possible. The problem begins when the desire for meaning becomes stronger than the evidence. Then we stop asking what happened and start asking who deserves our anger. We stop investigating causes and start constructing villains. We stop tolerating uncertainty and start manufacturing certainty. And sometimes we punish a person for a problem no single person could have controlled. There is a difficult truth hidden underneath all of this. Sometimes the world is not waiting for us to identify the villain. Sometimes there is no villain. Sometimes there is a chain of mistakes, sometimes there is a broken system, sometimes there's bad luck, sometimes there is human weakness, sometimes there is deliberate wrongdoing, sometimes there's all of these things at once. And sometimes the honest answer is simply that we don't know. That answer can feel frightening, but perhaps accepting it is not giving up control. Perhaps it is the beginning of gaining a more realistic kind of control. The control to distinguish what we know from what we merely feel, what someone caused from what simply happened, and what deserves punishment from what deserves understanding. The next time something goes wrong, the easiest question will be, whose fault is this? The harder question is, what is actually true? And perhaps the most courageous question of all is, can I live with the answer, even if there is nobody to blame? Because sometimes the world gives us a villain. Sometimes it gives us a lesson, and sometimes, most unsettling of all, it gives us neither. It gives us only a complicated reality and asks us what kind of people we will become when the story has no simple ending.